So, you're doing a research project and you need some information and sources on your subject. Well, databases are a great way to get that information. First, we're going to start on the JCKL homepage and we're going to go up to Browse Databases. We click on that and it brings us into this whole new page. Now, this page has a huge list of all the different databases available from the library. Now, it would be very inefficient to go through all these different databases one by one. So, if you know your subject, which hopefully you do, you can simply go up to this drop down menu and search by the subject area. So, we've had this sort of theme of history in World War II. So, let's go down to the H and find history right there. Click on that. And now we have this list of specifically history databases. So these are all databases that have historical sources. So if we look through these, we can find America History and Life. This is American history, and it has 1,700 journals from as far back as 1910. That's perfect. World War II was in the 40s and 50s, 30s and 40s. So perfect, it fits in there. Let's take a look. So, clicking on that link brings us to this new page, which has our search options. We have our input fields here. We have our Boolean phrases here. You can use these drop-down buttons, or you can just type the Boolean phrases in and use one search system. You can select what type of search mode you want, but we're using Boolean phrases, so that's fine. You can select your publication type. That can be very useful. If you just want an academic journal, peer-reviewed, well, actually, if you want it only peer-reviewed, you go up here to peer-reviewed and select that. Otherwise, it's just all academic journals. But if you wanted, say, a newspaper from 1936 talking about, I don't know, whatever, something in Germany, that would be great. And if you go down here to language, if you wanted that specifically in the original German, you could have that. That's not very helpful for us right now. We can also, and this is the big part, you can search by year. So if we were saying 1936 to 1945 are kind of World War II, building up to World War II, and then the war era, we could search that specifically. As I already mentioned, peer review, that's very helpful for if you want specifically very reliable sources. And you can exclude book reviews. That could be useful since we're not really looking for book reviews, we're looking for specific sources. So anyway, let's try a search here. So we're going with this World War II theme. Let's try World War II and how about Pearl Harbor? That makes sense for an American history sort of thing. Okay, so from that search, we get all these different sources related to our two keywords, World War II and Pearl Harbor. So if we look at these, you can see it tells you the title of it. So was the attack on Pearl Harbor the ultimate reason the Axis powers lost the Second World War? You can also see, so this tells you if this has the full text version included on the website, so you can just see the whole thing right here instead of having to go somewhere else. Whereas if it has this, you're going to have to search for that item either, well, you're probably going to have to find it like as a physical copy in the library somewhere. You're also going to see a little blurb here that tells you, it's like a little synopsis of what's in there. And you're also going to see the subjects right here, which is helpful. You can see who it's by, that's nice. But let's say, oh yeah, you can also see what type of sources it is, so academic journals versus periodicals. But let's look at let's just look at something that catches our eye here. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Action report. Report on Japanese raid on Pearl Harbor, 7th of December, 1941. So if we click on that, we can see the specific information about this source now. So we know there's not a full text version, so we can add that to our folder and search for it later once we have all our different sources ready to look at. Anyway, authors. There's Chester Nimitz. He was an admiral during World War II, so he'd probably be pretty darn knowledgeable about the attack on Pearl Harbor. Our source is Valley Forge Journal in 1991. The period is 1941, as we know, December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. And we can also see our subject headings here, which is useful. Basically, that tells us, well, this is World War II and Pearl Harbor in 1941, since those were our two search terms up here. And if we click on those, it's actually kind of helpful. Well, one, it makes sure that this source is what you're looking for, but it also lets you see other sources that might be helpful about this subject. But if we go back here, we can also see that little synopsis that was out here. It's called the abstract. And we can see, reproduces the narrative portion of the official report of the attack on Pearl Harbor. The attack is detailed in 5 phases with photographs and a map. So if we were doing a research project on Pearl Harbor and say the Japanese build up and specifically the attack, that would be really amazing as a first-hand source. We could see not only from an admiral who was alive during the time and would have had a lot of dealings with it, but also these photographs and a map. That would be absolutely perfect for a research project about Pearl Harbor. So that's how to use databases and search through databases, find the right database you need, and search for your subject to work on a research project.